Okay, my colleague Harry Mobberly, who couldn't be here, and I'm very sorry, was probably one of the greatest champions of education in the House, and particularly a champion for the education reform that was enacted in 1990, set Kentucky on the cutting edge of reform in education. And I was probably one of the biggest opponents. I was elected in 1990 on a wave of objection to some of these components of the education reform, primarily the assessment. And early on, it was a major goal of mine to bring a little rationality to the use of assessment for instructional purposes and accountability, and Harry was defending it. With that background, I'll tell you about a story. I'm walking down the halls of the General Assembly, and I'm going from being deep minority to minority leader in a growing minority and getting a little more influence, and I file a bill dealing with early intervention for people who are struggling readers. So I prepare my bill and I file it. And one day I'm out in a crowded hall and I see these three women walking down the hall, and they are on a mission. You can tell the way they're moving. And their mission was to see me, which was really surprising because I wasn't used to anybody paying any attention to the bills I filed because I was in the minority. And they said, "Senator Kelly, you filed this bill on early literacy intervention. We want to talk to you about it." I said, "Yeah, you think I've got a good bill?" And they said, "No. It's a lousy bill. But if you'll let us work with you, it'll be a great bill." So they went to work. They were really smart. They really knew what they were doing. Gene Wilhoit, after it would pass, said it was the finest piece of education reform legislation he'd ever seen. That's quite a compliment for those three ladies. So we get the bill through the Senate. Then I had to go down and see the governor. I've got to get him committed to the funding of it. And we need about $11 million to get this thing up and running. And he's only willing, he says, "Oh, the House will only do $3 or $4 million, Dan. That's all I can do." And so we determined $3 or $4 million, we'll get started, we'll show it works, and then we'll scale it up. Then I go over to the House, and guess who I meet? Harry Mobberly. And Harry said, "Dan, I like your bill, but I got some changes I want to make to it. You're just doing early intervention, which I call stopping the bleeding." He said, I want to work on what's going on in middle school." And so I thought for a minute, we don't have enough money to get this thing going if I share any money for any other program. But this is Harry Mobberly, and I got to get the bill through. And I said, "Harry, this is not my bill. This was done by some really smart people, and they really think it's going to work, and I think you just need to leave it like it is. And then after we show it works, we'll upscale it, and we'll bring your program in with it." And I don't know what Harry was thinking, but he said, "Okay." He passed the bill. He told me later, he said that he was really glad he did, because it did turn out to be a good bill. And after that, we collaborated on an effort in math. We collaborated on efforts to advance availability of AP courses and other college readiness courses. We did a lot of work on a lot of issues and really could agree, except on assessment. And boy, did we battle over assessment. 20 years of battling over assessment. But finally, we came together on the Senate Bill 1 initiative, where we recognized the need. The year prior, we did some changes to the math standards, and everybody was realizing we've got to make these standard changes. And the two chambers worked together, and we produced this piece of legislation. It was bipartisan, and it was a wonderful experience of working together with some great people. And it's nice to have all of you here in Kentucky to be working with us, to exchange ideas. And thank you also for this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Aaron doesn't get a chance to talk very much, and he wanted to come up and share some thoughts about Harry Mobberly.
Everybody knows that that's really a joke. First of all, a little housekeeping on my part. This morning I introduced almost everyone, and when you try to do that, in fact, you're going to leave out somebody. And I did the educational cooperatives. We call them the co-ops. They do fantastic work, and they're a great liaison between higher education and K-12. So thank you guys for being here. Harry called me, yes. Harry called me this afternoon, and Judge, he said, "I want you to tell me what he says, because we may disagree on a few things." So I think he would agree with everything you said. He wanted me to say that And for those who know Harry, he spent 30 years in the legislature, and he was a tireless advocate for education at all levels. I mean, he served on appropriations, joint committees and education, subcommittees, interim committees. Harry wanted to make sure, more than anything else, that he was leaving a legacy for the kids. And last year, when he retired, he was talking to me about Senate Bill 1. And when I came to the council 3 years ago, he sat down with me and he said, you know, Aaron, I think this may be the best legislation I've had anything to do with. And so today he wanted me to reiterate that, in fact, it was. And he said some of the reasons why, obviously, are the ones that we're kind of semi-celebrating today. And that is the vertical alignment between K-12 and higher ed, he said, was something he tried to get done for a long time. The assessment piece and how you do the feedback loop to make our kids have every opportunity in the world that they need in order to be successful, he felt that Senate Bill 1 was able to provide that. So he wanted me particularly to thank the Council on Postsecondary Education, the Kentucky Department of Education, Educational Professional Standards Board, and his colleagues, or former colleagues, who actually worked together to make it happen. He said the legislation was one thing, but the ability that we've had now to operationalize it and make it work was in fact what he always envisioned. So he wanted me to thank you very much for this recognition and to let you know that he hopes this is only the start of many great things to come. So thank you very much.
Now for the chat. I have been remarkably lucky here in Kentucky. I was here about a month and a half as Senate Bill 1, this legislation we're talking about, was just starting to be negotiated in the legislature. And after it was adopted, I had a partner at the State Department of Education who was there as an interim commissioner, Elaine Ferris, who's with us today. And Elaine and I and Phil Rogers actually started meeting after this bill passed. If you can imagine this, we would have meetings in our office or over at Elaine's office, and Harry Mobberly and Dan Kelly would attend the meetings. And then Carl and Ken would come to the meetings. This is staff stuff. And here are these legislators taking time out of their schedules to come. Now, part of it, I'm sure, was they didn't think we could possibly do this. But I was so impressed that they didn't just walk away from this because it passed and the governor signed it. Elaine left that post and took superintendency in one of our county school districts. And the State Board of Education was smart enough to go out and hire this absolutely remarkable public school leader, Terry Holliday. And he has been a great partner and a great leader in this effort. And so, Commish, come on up. And this other partner we've got in Kentucky, we're structured a little bit different than many other states with regard to the fact that our enterprise that licenses and certifies teachers and teacher ed programs is a separate independent organization called the Educational Professional Standards Board. It is headed by another great partner and good friend, Phil Rogers. And Phil, come on up. Now, here's the deal. I went back through my memory and also picked Phil and Terry's memory. We have dinner every month together and tried to identify what were the major markers that helped us actually get to where we are today, at least from our level of being the senior executives of the three organizations that were charged with this. And so we're going to take you through some of these activities because we hope that they will be instructive and helpful to you as you think through in your states, if you're not quite at this point, how any of these types of activities would be of value. In addition, I wanted Representative Rollins and Senator Winters here with us to really kick this off and share in a little bit greater detail how they got to the point where this legislation could be possible given the fact that there had been very polarized and different competing views about particularly the testing issues around Senate Bill 1. And so, Senator, I'll let you start, but if you could share with us, and I'm going to come and sit down in a second, that's for the microphone people, but if you could share with us kind of what you were thinking and what were the issues that were important to you on the Senate side, and then Carl, I'm going to ask you to share the same thing, and then maybe the two of you can tell us the secret of how you brought it together.